Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning friends. This is Professor Ravin Zugade from Department of Chemistry, Rashtrasanta Tukadoji Maharaj, Nagpur University. I am going to discuss an inorganic chemistry topic of transition elements. Outline of this module is Introduction to transition elements, position of the transition elements in periodic table, electronic configuration of 3D series elements, atomic and ionic radii, ionization potentials, variable oxidation states, colors, magnetic properties, catalytic property, complex formation tendency, and some typical questions based on all of these topics. I have divided this module into 4 lectures. In the first lecture, we'll discuss about the first 4 topics. In the second lecture, we'll discuss next 2 topics. In the third lecture, we'll discuss next 2 topics, and in the fourth lecture, we'll discuss about the remaining 3 topics. So now, let us concentrate on the first 4 topics, starting with Introduction to Transition Elements. Why these elements are called as the transition elements? Now, transition is a specific word meaning a transformation or changeover or changing the state from one state to another form. Now, if we see the properties of these elements, the properties are intermediate between S block elements and P block elements. These D block elements or transition elements are placed at the center of the periodic table between S block and P block elements. They are more electronegative than the S block elements and less electronegative than the P block elements. Overall, all the periodic properties of these elements are intermediate. So when we move from S block to P block via D block, the periodic properties gradually go on changing. That is the reason why they are called as the transition elements. One more interesting thing about these elements is the last electron, which is called as the differentiating electron, is added in the penultimate shell, that is the last but one shell and not the last shell. If we see the electronic configurations of S and P block elements, the last electron is always added to the last shell. But in case of transition elements, the differentiating electron is always added to the inner shell. Now these elements are classified into 4 series. The first transition series, also called as the 3D series, extends from scandium with atomic number 21 to zinc atomic number 30. The second transition series or the 4D series extends from yttrium to cadmium. The 5D series or third transition series extends from lanthanum with atomic number 57 and then from hafnium to mercury. You will find that some atomic numbers are missing from atomic number 58 to 71. These elements belong to a different series called as the inner transition element series, which is the first inner transition series, that is lanthanides. The 6D or fourth transition series extends from actinium and then from ruthenium to copernicium. Again, in between these 14 atomic numbers are missing which belong to the actinide series, which are inner transition elements. Now we will be focusing mainly on the properties of 3D series or first transition series. Scandium to zinc, atomic number 21 to 30. Let us see the properties of these elements one by one. So according to the correct definition of transition elements, only those elements which have partially filled d subshell in elemental state or any of the oxidation state, they are called as the transition elements. So it means that the compulsory condition is partially filled d subshell should be there. Now we know that d subshell has a capacity of 10 electrons. So when I say partially filled d subshell, it means that it should have D1 to D9 configuration. See a few examples. This is manganese, atomic number 25. The electronic configuration, or outer electronic configuration is 3d5 4s2. Now this 3d5 configuration means it is partially filled d subshell. So definitely it belongs to transition elements. Similarly, nickel, it has got 3d8 configuration, partially filled d subshell, meaning that it is a member of transition elements. Now the question is the copper member of transition series element? If we see the electronic configuration, it has got 3d10 configuration. Now 3d10 is not partially filled, but one of the oxidation states of copper is copper 2+ with 9 electrons in the d subshell, meaning that it is partially filled d subshell in one of the oxidation states of copper. So definitely copper belongs to transition series. What about zinc, cadmium and mercury? Now zinc has a configuration 3d10, cadmium has a configuration 4d10, mercury has a configuration 5d10, and all of them exist in +2 oxidation state. Now in +2 oxidation state, these 2 electrons of zinc are gone, but still it is having D10 configuration. So zinc definitely does not belong to the transition series according to this definition. But zinc is studied along with transition elements because of the similarity in their properties. Now where are these transition series find their applications in our daily life? Coins. We know that coins are being used for generations, and since ancient civilization in many countries the metallic coins are generally used, and the 3D series elements play a very important role in these coins. They are generally made up of copper, iron, etc. Similarly, electricity is an essential part of our life today, and the wires are mainly made up of copper or some alloys of copper. Magnetic nature of the few elements in 3D series play a very important role in preparation of magnets, alloys used in various alloy wheels or large number of materials including the rails, etc. One more application of these elements is in the catalytic property. Many of these elements you must have heard about Raney nickel, finely divided nickel, finely divided platinum, platinized platinum. All of these are transition elements and they are used in various organic as well as inorganic reactions as catalysts. One more important role of transition elements, specifically the 3D series elements, is in the photochemical reactions. They are very good photocatalysts. Apart from these roles, transition elements play a very important role in biological systems also. Now this entity or this molecule is our hemoglobin, which is present in our body, and iron is an essential ingredient of hemoglobin, plays very important role in oxygen transportation in our body. Cyanocobalamin or vitamin B12 has cobalt as a metal ion at the center of this porphyrin type of ring. So all of these elements play very important role not only in the materials but also in the biological systems. Now where are these elements placed in the periodic table? If we see the skeleton of the periodic table, on the extreme left side you have S block elements placed in group 1 and group 2. On extreme right side you have P block elements placed in group 13 to group 18. In between them there is a space for transition elements placed between S block and P block elements in group 3 to group 12. These are classified into 4 series: first transition series, second transition series, third transition series and fourth transition series. Now at the bottom of the periodic table there are 2 more rows of lanthanoids and actinoids, also called as the inner transition elements. Let us discuss the electronic configuration of 3D series elements. Now if you want to discuss electronic configuration, or if you want to derive electronic configuration of any element, there are 3 important rules which if you follow, you can write electronic configuration of any element. The first rule or the first principle is the Aufbau principle. Aufbau is a German word meaning construction or building up. So the atom is built up with the help of nucleus and electrons on the basis of Aufbau principle. What this Aufbau principle says, we will see. The second principle which governs the electronic configuration is the Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. And the third rule which governs the electronic configuration is the principle of extra stability. What Aufbau principle says? It says that when the electrons are filled in various shells and subshells, they are filled in the increasing order of the energies of the shells and subshells. That is, the lowest energy orbital or lowest energy shells and subshells will be filled first, and then the electron will go to the next higher energy orbital. Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity, it says, if you have equal energy orbitals, then each of the equal energy orbital, also called as the degenerate orbital, will get 1 electron each, and then only the pairing will take place. So degenerate orbitals are filled first singly and then the pairing will take place. Whereas the principle of extra stability says that half filled or completely filled subshells are extra stable. When I say shell, it means that I am talking about KLMN. When I am saying subshell, it means that I am talking about SPDF. And when I say orbitals, it means that I am talking about S, Px, Py, Pz, Dxy, Dyz, Dxz. These are the orbitals. Now, we'll try to understand the electronic configuration of 3D series elements from scandium to zinc. This is the energy level diagram of various shells and subshells. Now the main shells are here: K shell, L shell, M shell, N shell. And these are the subshells S, P and D. Now when the electrons are filled, the first 2 electrons will go to 1s, the next 2 electrons will go to 2s, next 6 electrons will go to 2p, next 2 electrons will go to 3s, next 6 electrons will go to 3p, next 2 electrons will go to 4s, and next 10 electrons will go to 3d. There is an interesting observation. We will find that the energy of 4s is less than energy of 3d. This is based on a rule called as N plus L rule. What this N plus L rule says? It says that the subshell having lower N plus L value will have lower energy. Consider this 4s. Now when I say 4s, what is the value of N and L? N is equal to 4, the main or principal quantum number, and azimuthal quantum number for S subshell is 0. So this is 4 plus 0 is equal to 4. But when you go to 3D, for 3D, the principal quantum number is 3. And for D subshell, the azimuthal quantum number is 2. So it is 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. Now since 4 is less than 5, the energy of 4s is less than the energy of 3D, and so the electrons will first go to 4s, and after filling 4s, the electrons will go to 3D. So we'll start filling the electrons right from beginning. So the first 2 electrons will go to 1s, next 2 electrons will go to 2s, next 6 electrons will go to 2p, next 2 electrons will go to 3s, next 6 electrons in 3p, and 2 electrons in 4s. Now this is at atomic number 20 up to calcium. Now next electron will go to 3D, and from here the D series starts. So we get the 3D series elements from scandium, which is atomic number 21. So what is the expected electronic configuration? Scandium should have D1, titanium should have D2, vanadium should have D3, chromium should have D4, manganese should have D5, ferrous should have, or iron should have D6, cobalt should have D7, nickel should have D8, copper should have D9, and zinc should have D10 configuration. This is what we expect. Now let us see what is the actual configuration. So the general electronic configuration should be 3D1 to 3D10. The actual electronic configuration is like this. I have put this electronic configuration in two forms. The complete electronic configuration, as we have discussed according to the above principle, and second is the condensed electronic configuration. We'll see what is this condensed electronic configuration. If we observe this electronic configuration carefully, up to 3p6, this electronic configuration is exactly same as that of argon. So what we write is argon. So this is the core of argon, or argon core, followed by 3D1 and 4s2. Similarly, this is argon core followed by 3D2, 4s2. This is called as the condensed electronic configuration. Now, if we observe this electronic configuration carefully, the next successive electron is always going to D subshell. So 3D1, 3D2 titanium, 3D3 vanadium, but chromium there is an anomaly. It should have 3D4 configuration, but actually it is having 3D5. Similarly, manganese, it is as per rule 3D5, then 3D6, iron, cobalt is 3D7, nickel 3D8. Again there is an anomaly in copper. It should have 3D9 configuration, but actually it is having 3D10. So there are two important anomalies, and we will try to explain why different electronic configuration is observed in chromium and copper. It is based on the third principle we were talking about, the principle of extra stability. What this principle says? It says that if you have a half filled or completely filled subshell, it is extra stable, and those elements having near extra stable configuration will try to acquire this configuration by transfer of electron from one subshell to another subshell. Take an example. For this, we'll see two important examples, and on the basis of them, we'll try to explain why this extra stability is there. The first reason for extra stability is symmetrical distribution of electrons. Chromium 24 can have two configurations. It can have 3D4, 4s2 or 3D5, 4s1. Now if it has 3D4, 4s2 configuration, it is less symmetrical, whereas 3D5, 4s1 is more symmetrical, and we know that symmetry leads to stability. That's why 3D5 configuration is more stable as compared to 3D4. Another reason for extra stability is the exchange energy. Exchange means shifting of electrons in the same subshell. Take example of D4 system. If you have 4 electrons in the D subshell, they can exchange among themselves. So how many exchanges are possible? 3 exchanges with electron number 1, 2 exchanges with electron number 2 and 1 exchange with electron number 3. So there are overall 6 electron exchanges possible, 3 plus 2 plus 1. Now if you have D5 configuration, see the number of exchanges. This electron number 1 can exchange with 4 other electrons, so number of exchanges are 4. Second electron has 3 exchanges, third electron has 2 exchanges, and fourth electron has 1 exchange. So total number of electron exchanges are 10, and since there are more number of exchanges, there is more delocalization of electrons, and more delocalization leads to more release of energy, leading to extra stability. We know that less is the energy, more is the stability. Hence, increased exchange energy leads to extra stability in D5 as well as D10 configuration. Coming to the second property of the 3D series elements, that is atomic and ionic radii. How will you define an atomic radius? It is the distance between the nucleus and outermost electron. It depends on 3 factors. The first factor which governs the atomic radius is the nuclear charge. Now we know that nucleus is continuously attracting all the electrons towards itself. Because of the force of attraction, every electron is bound to the nucleus. Now if nuclear charge increases, its force of attraction will increase. And if its force of attraction increases, the electrons are pulled closer and the atomic radius decreases. It means that with increase in nuclear charge, the atomic radius decreases. So in other words, we can say that atomic radius is inversely proportional to nuclear charge. Second factor which governs the atomic radius is the number of shells. If you have an atom with 1 shell, then 2 shells, then 3 shells, we know as the number of shells are increasing, the atomic radius is definitely going to increase quite obviously. Third factor which governs the atomic and ionic radius is the shielding effect or screening effect. Now let us try to understand this effect in details. If you have an atom with n number of shells and electrons present in the shells, when I say atomic radius, it is the distance between the nucleus and the outermost electron. Now this outermost electron is experiencing some force of attraction from the nucleus. But in between there are some other electrons which will definitely govern the force of attraction experienced by the outer electron from the nucleus. What these electrons will do? These electrons will shield the outermost electron from the force of nucleus, and hence it is called as the screening effect or shielding effect. In other words, we can define the shielding effect as the reduction in the force of attraction between nucleus and outermost electron caused by the inner shell electrons. This is called as the shielding effect. Now if shielding effect is more, then the force of attraction is less, and as a result the atomic radius will increase. In other words, we can say that atomic radius is directly proportional to shielding effect. When we go from left to right in a periodic table, across period, what will happen? The nuclear charge will continuously go on increasing. Number of shells across a period are constant. Shielding effect has a negligible effect because electrons are added to the same shell, and hence the main factor which governs the atomic radius across a period is the nuclear charge. And since nuclear charge is increasing, the atomic radius will continuously go on decreasing across the period, expected for all the elements in the periodic table. Now let us see the effect of all these factors on atomic and ionic radii of 3D series elements. This is the graph showing trend of atomic radius and ionic radius across the period from scandium to zinc. Now you will find three different words for atomic radius. One is a metallic radius, second is a covalent radius, and third is a ionic radius. Now what is a metallic radius? Metallic radius is defined as half of the internuclear distance in the adjacent atoms in a metal. Consider that this is a metal. The adjacent atoms in the metallic state are compact and they are very close to each other. Now if you take the internuclear distance, and half of that will be called as the metallic radius. What is a covalent radius? Now we know that covalent bond is formed by overlapping of atomic orbitals. And since the atomic orbitals are overlapped, if we take half of the internuclear distance, that will be called as the covalent radius. And you can see the difference between the two. In case of metallic radius, you will find the metals, the atoms are just touching each other. Whereas in case of covalent radius, the atoms are actually overlapping on each other. Hence, this covalent radius is always slightly less than the metallic radius. And what is an ionic radius? Ionic radius is the radius of an ion. Now how these positively charged ions are formed? Since they are metals, all of them have a tendency to lose electrons and they form cations. Now these cations have same nuclear charge but less number of electrons. And since the electrons are lost, the atomic radius will definitely decrease, because now the nucleus is having the same force of attraction but the number of electrons are less. So they are pulled closer to the nucleus. Hence, ionic radius is always less than the covalent radius. Okay. Now let us see what is the trend of atomic radius from scandium to zinc. What is happening from scandium to chromium? There is a slow decrease of atomic radius. Okay. Then the atomic radius almost remains constant from chromium to nickel, and then it increases from nickel to copper to zinc. Now why this type of trend is observed? Normally what is expected? A continuous decrease. But what we are observing? Slight decrease, constant and increase. Now why this is so? Consider this is an atom with atomic number 20. This is calcium. Now there are 20 positive charges in the nucleus and 20 electrons. Now when I say atomic radius of this atom, it is the distance between the nucleus and the outermost electron, which is the 4s electron. Now when we go to scandium, one electron is added, but that electron is not added to fourth shell, but it is added to third shell, the 3d subshell. And the nuclear charge increases by 1 unit. Now nuclear charge is increased, force of attraction of nucleus increases, and as a result the atomic radius is expected to decrease, and that is what is happening. Then next element, titanium, nuclear charge is further increased by 1 unit, one more electron is added to third shell. Vanadium, one more electron is added to third shell and nuclear charge is increased by 1 more unit. In chromium, atomic number again increased by 1 unit, nuclear charge increases by 1 unit and 1 more electron is added. Now from here, the electrons are continuously added to third shell. The nuclear charge is increasing, but electrons are added to third shell, which is a penultimate shell or second last shell. Whereas atomic radius is the distance between nucleus and a fourth shell electron. Now since these electrons are added to the inner shells, they cause what is called as a shielding effect or screening effect. So they reduce the force of attraction between nucleus and outermost electron. And because of this reduction in the force of attraction, the increase in nuclear charge is compensated by the shielding effect, and as a result there is no significant increase in the atomic radius from chromium to nickel. Now from nickel to copper, the atomic number increases by 1 unit, nuclear charge increases, 1 more electron is added. and in zinc 1 more electron is added. Now in this particular case you will find that even if the nuclear charge is increased, since extra 2 electrons are added over here, the inter-electronic repulsion between them increases, and as a result the atomic radius increases instead of decrease. This is the reason for increase in atomic radius in copper and zinc. This is all about this lecture. We will continue the remaining part in lecture 2, 3 and 4. Thank you very much.